The first task is to start setting up our folder structure for our project. Let's go ahead and open up a new terminal window and just choose a folder or create a folder where you feel comfortable storing your project on your local development machine. I've got a folder here already set up and I'm ready to go. Before we start writing any commands to create folders and files and that kind of thing, let's make sure that we aligned on the specific Node version that we're going to be using throughout this course. So I can just do an nvm ls. If I run that command right now, you'll see that I have a couple of versions of Node installed here, but mainly my default version of Node that I'm using is version 20.10.0. If you don't have nvm installed, you can also just do a node-v and that'll just tell you exactly which version of Node you're running on your computer. So go ahead and do what you need to do to install the correct version of Node. Once we're aligned with our Node versions, let's go ahead and create an outer folder structure that we can use to house all our files and folders for our application that we're going to be working on. So I'm going to go ahead and use this make directory command. I'm going to call my project node docker mongo. I'm just going to go ahead and hit enter there, and that's going to create a new project, and I'm just going to cd right into the node docker mongo folder that I've just created. And if I do a ls once I'm in there, and even an ls-a, you'll see that there's nothing in this folder at the moment, so it's just an empty outer folder. So within this folder that we've just created, let's go ahead and create a new subdirectory within here. I'm going to call this API, and this is going to be the folder that's going to store all the code for our Express server. I'm going to hit enter there and we'll do an ls, and you'll see we've got the subdirectory in there called API. And there's just one more file that I want to create at this level. We will do a touch, and then I'm going to go ahead and create a docker compose file. So we'll say docker-compose, and then we'll just give that the extension of .yaml. Hit enter there and do another ls. All we have at the base of our project here is an API folder and a docker compose.yaml file. This file that we've just created is just going to be a part of the initialization for now. We're going to leave it empty. We're not going to touch this until a couple of modules time, but I just wanted to make sure that the main point is that we've got this outer folder structure here with the node docker mongo, and within it our API folder, it will house all our Node and Express code. Now that we have these two items set up here, let's go ahead and change directory into our API folder. And once we're in the API folder, we can go ahead and initialize our Node project. And we can do this by saying npm init, and then we can just use the -y flag. That -y flag just goes ahead and initialize a package.json file in our project. And so if we do a ls in this API folder, you'll see that we now have a package.json file. And this package.json file just contains this object that's been outputted here. So that -y flag just goes ahead and creates a very bare bones, very simple package.json. It doesn't take you through the prompt step by step to actually name everything in your, or fill in the details of your package.json. Now that we've initialized the Node project, let's go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code. And so go ahead and just make sure you change directory one level up so that you're in the node docker mongo folder. And then I'm just going to go ahead and run the code and then period. And this is just going to open up our project in Visual Studio Code. Once we've opened our node docker mongo project in Visual Studio Code, you'll see that we have the docker compose.yaml file as well as the API folder. If we open up the API folder, we'll see that we have a package.json file. And if we open that up, we'll see we've got this JSON object here that contains all the basic bare bones configuration for our API. You can go ahead and fill this out with any of the information you want. You can fill out a name for your project. You can give it a description, an author, and change the license and whatever. So you can just go ahead and update any details that you want. But at this specific stage, all I wanted to do was make one change to the package.json. And that is I want to reference this type key here. And so if we, underneath the description and above the main key, I just want to reference this type key here. And I want to go ahead and change this to module. And the reason that I'm doing this is that I want to make use of all the new import and export syntax that are available to us since ES6. Now that we've made that minor change to our package.json configuration, the next step is to install two base packages that we want to make use of right from the get-go while we're building out our API. The first one is obviously going to be Express.js. Express is a really well-used NPM package to help us create Node HTTP servers. And the second one will be NodeMon, which will just allow us to set up hot reloading in our development environment which just watches for any file changes. So any changes we make to our files or folders while we're writing our code, this is going to restart the server so that we don't have to keep running the commands to start our server every time we make a change. So to install this, we have to just make sure that we are in the root of our API folder. In a new terminal, if we locate it at the parent directory of our project, we should just cd into the API folder. Once we're in there, just make sure we've got our package.json. Once we're in there, we can do an npm install. We'll just reference the express package there as well as nodemon. I'll hit enter and wait for that to save. Once that command has been run, those two packages have then been installed into our project. We've got our express package there as well as the nodemon package that's been added. And so to get started, the first thing I want to do is create a brand new folder. I'm going to just call this source or SRC for the abbreviation for source. I'm going to add that folder, and this source folder is going to contain our specific code related to our API. So at the root of this source folder, we create a new file, and I'll call it index.js. And this index.js file is going to act as the entry point into our application. For now, I'm just going to leave a to-do comment here. This comment will remind us to start our HTTP server, but we haven't got the code to actually do that, so we'll just make a to-do now, and we'll get back to this once we have written the code to set up our server. And something I like to do is just do a simple console log when I'm setting these things up, just to make sure that everything's wired correctly. So let's just do a simple console log. We'll say testing index.js. Let's go ahead and start up our node server. So in the terminal at the root of our API folder, we can just run node, and then we just need to reference the source folder and then this index.js. If I hit enter there, you'll see that we get that testing index.js console log, so that we know that our entry point into our application is actually being run in the correct way. And so there is one quick change we need to make to the package.json file. And under the main key, just so for the sake of being correct here, our entry point in our node application is actually housed in the source folder, and it's this index.js. And that's the entry point to our file. So we'll just make sure we save that in the package.json file. So we've tested that our index.js file is being executed when we initiate the node run command. The next thing I want to do is just set up a npm script that we can run, and we've installed nodemon, and we want to make sure that it's working for us right from the get-go. So in order to do this, we can just remove this test script that was dumped in here by our npm init command, and we can just go ahead and create a new key within the scripts object. And I'm just going to call this start::dev, and that command is just going to be used to start our development environment. And then we can go ahead and just to build this up, we'll just first put the standard node command to start our project. So we'll say node source index.js, and this is the command that we literally just ran in the terminal. And now instead of just running the node command straight at the root of our API, we can say npm run start dev. Once I run that command, it goes ahead and it starts our application, and it runs that console log that we have that's sitting in our index.js file there. All we need to do to get nodemon running is, instead of referencing this node command, we can just reference nodemon, and we just run it in the exact same way. I'm going to hit save there. We can run the same command. We can say npm run start dev. And if I hit enter now, you'll see the output looks slightly different. We've got some additional output that's coming from the nodemon package, and it just goes ahead and it says starting the node project at the root that we've specified. And you can see the blinking cursor is sitting there. Just to demonstrate how this works is, whenever we make a change with any files or folders within the source folder here, you'll see that these changes will reflect. Once I hit save here, these changes will reflect immediately, because that command to restart our project will be run. So this is going to be very handy for us. Instead of rerunning those commands to start each time we make a change, it's just going to do it on the fly. We've done the initial work to build out some of our API. We've got nodemon working. We've got a nice npm script that we've created. Let's take a short break here, and we'll continue in the next lesson. I'll see you over there. Cheers for now.